Afternoon everyone, welcome to Marian's World and welcome to another pretty little flower page from my flower book. Some of it I managed to stitch outside, so there's a few shadows on it, but I'm sure you'll be able to see what I'm doing, so I hope you enjoy it. So to do this embroidered daisy today, I'm using another stump work technique. I've got some just plain yellow cotton in my little hoop. You can see it's only the width of my hand. And I've got white cotton or brode in my needle. And cotton or brode is just a single strand of a soft cotton. It's going to be thicker and easier to work with for this technique. Up until I've actually decided to stitch, I was actually going to do a different page for the daisy, but then all of a sudden I just wanted to do a daisy chain, and so that's what I'm preparing for. So this is going to be the central element to my page, and I've drawn on the middle, which I'll probably fill with French knots or something, but I've actually drawn with pencil the size that I want the daisy to be. And that's quite important to keep all of my petals the same size. So I'm going to come up on the inner circle somewhere. And this is another technique where you have to use a pin. I'm going to put my pin on the outer circle because that's where I want the petal to finish. And I'm just going to bring it right past. Doesn't matter where it comes out, as long as it's from the length of your petal will be from here to the edge. Actually, I'm going to do it that way. These are really lovely to do. You can use them for all sorts, and this is the most basic type. You can use far more than 3 threads, and I'm only using 3 today. So I'm going to go around the pin. And instead of coming down to a little back stitch like I did with the forget-me-not, I'm going to make the petal an actual depth at the bottom. A width, sorry, an actual width. I'm going to go down there. And I'm going to come up in the middle. And around the pin again. And now I'm actually set up for doing the stitch. I'm going to just move the camera a bit. There. And so a woven picot is exactly what you would think. It's woven. So I'm going to start and just go under, over, under these 3 strands. So I could do a picot with 5 strands. It would have to be odd. That's the only caveat. And just pull this right up to the top. And use your needle to just make sure that's right up. And then on this time I'm just going to go over and under the middle stitch. And so none of this is going through the fabric. And I'm just going to keep coming back and forwards, under, over, under. Don't want to pull it too tight because I don't want the petal to be minute. I want to just keep it weaving, and on the way back I just need to go under that middle thread. So it's just weaving back and forwards like that. It helps if you don't have a super sharp point on your needle. So this needle is quite short. It has a biggish eye for the cotton or brode, but it's not particularly sharp. But you could always use the eye of the needle to do the weaving either. And as long as you're weaving back and forward and you're making sure that every time you've done sort of 1 or 2 passes, that you use your needle and make sure that that weaving is going upwards, you can see that I'm starting to get a petal. And I keep doing that till I get right down to the bottom. And this is just such a lovely technique. It's not particularly hard. It's just, you sort of have to be a bit precise, that's all. You don't want to be making, pulling your weaving too tightly, but nor do you want it to be sloppy either. It needs to just be, I think the more you do it, the more you realise just how much you have to pull it. It's one of those things where doing it is probably easier than watching it being done. So it gets a bit more awkward as you get down to the bottom because you have less room as the threads are running out, but you definitely want to fill the threads up. And you can shape your petal by leaving it a bit wider in the middle and pulling it a bit tighter as you come down, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just pull this in a bit, so I'm shaping the petal. So carry on. I think I can get another couple of rows in there. You can see how quick that's been to make that petal. Going to get one, definitely get one more underneath. And I think I'll actually get another one. Really want it to be filled up. This is just the awkward bit. I'll just get that one in. And then I'm going to take the thread to the back, just at the end of that petal. And then of course the exciting bit is taking the pin out. And there you have one beautiful petal anchored down at the bottom. And so that outer edge is just going to make sure that I keep all of my petals exactly the same width. So I'm going to come up this way, right on this edge of that petal, and set up for my second petal. So I want a right angle to the middle. So as that petal's gone that way, this one is sort of going here. I'll put my pin in on that edge and I'll just go right through till the point's out of my way. I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch there. So I've gone round the pin once. I'll come up in the middle of the petal. And go around the pin again. It actually doesn't matter which way round at all. You tend to end up being consistent when you're doing it, but it doesn't matter in the slightest. So I'll go around that way and then immediately start weaving. Under, over, under. Just pull it snugly without pulling tight. And then over, under, over. Just nestle them up and carry on. And can you see how that pulled tight there? And I'm going to make sure that it's not pulled tight. I'm going to just make them go up because I want the petal to look nice. I'll go under the middle one on the way back. And under the two outer ones on the way forward. And it's just such a lovely texture as well. And you see how that one's sort of got a little bit of a twist in it. You can really sort of manipulate them a bit. In my book they're going to be flattened down more, but they'll still look nice and loose. But I fancy doing a proper daisy picture, I think. The point is I've got nowhere to hang any pictures anymore, which is why I really like doing the books. So this is a good technique, obviously, for petals. You can make them so much wider. If I could put more than one pin in to go around more than once with a variety of pins, and I could get a really wide petal if I was doing an open rose or something. I'll just try and show as many techniques as I can that'll help you make a lovely book too. I can remember the first time I ever did this, and I was just working years ago from a library book. It's obviously, you know, those of us of an age can remember a world without internet or YouTube videos, and most of the, in fact all of the things that I do now with embroidery were mostly learned from library books. My mum didn't embroider, my grandma did tapestry, you know, Petit Point, and she had tapestry all over the place. But she was the one who taught me chain stitch and lazy daisy and satin stitch and all those things. And the first sampler I ever did, I actually have hanging on my wall in my sitting room. I must have been probably about 10, maybe a little bit older, maybe 10 or 12. I found it languishing in my workbox a few years ago, and it had got a tea stain on it over the years somehow. And all of a sudden I thought, why is it here? It needs to be, it's not perfect. It was done from a transfer, which is what you did in those days, iron on a transfer and embroider it in. It's definitely what you'd give to a child as well. And so I framed it, and it's up on my wall, and I'm very proud of it. The first proper thing I ever did. You can see I'm nearly to the bottom of this one. You can see how lovely and woven that is. It makes such a beautiful texture. I think one more will probably do it. And I'm going to go down to the back. Release the pin, and there we are, petal number 2. I'm going to go around and do as many petals as I can get around here, and probably a second row too. So I'll get my first row finished. You can see that I've finished the outer ring, or the inner ring of petals now. I managed to get 6 round there, and they look really nice, but I would like to have more. So I'm going to come up in the spaces between these petals to do another row all the way around. And to do that, I've got my pin in just like before, but I'm just going to push those petals to one side like that and hold them over and start my petal just exactly the same, but I'm just going to go a couple of millimeters behind to take down for my first petal. Come up in the middle again, and by leaving this little bit of space, it'll allow the petals to hopefully sit flat. But it's exactly the same, no difference at all. And back and forwards to fill the petal up, making sure we use the pin and our fingers to make sure all the weaving is where it needs to be. What I didn't say before is if you don't have this cotton or broader, you could absolutely do it in stranded cotton. If I wasn't using this on this size of flower, I'd probably use 3 strands of stranded cotton. But also, if I was doing a bigger flower, say I was trying to do an echinacea or something like that, and maybe wanted it to be more life size, I'd use all 6 strands of stranded cotton, and it would look gorgeous. So you can definitely, you don't have to use this cotton. It's just this is the one I thought I would use because I thought it would look nice. It's got more of a matte finish than the stranded cotton, and that was why I chose this as opposed to the stranded cotton. I wanted this more matte silky finish than the shiny finish of the stranded. I feel as if in the future I could really just do some nice tutorial videos on different stitches. I know there's plenty of people out there that have similar, but it's nice to see them being used in an actual project, I think, rather than just a stitch. Because sometimes it's like, well, okay, what do I do with it now then? Whereas at least this way, you can see how they look and how they work in a project. Just going to go down and come up. I think I'm not going to just particularly do in the spaces. I want them to be a bit more random than just in every space. So I probably, although I've got 6 going around there. Oh look, that looks lovely already. I think I might get 8. I don't want just 6 in the gaps. I'll just put as many as I can get together. So as you can see, I've finished my petals. I did another 10 around the outside edge, and it has made my daisy look really pretty. But I realised now that I've started to do the middle that I actually should have made the middle a lot bigger. So a daisy I think would have had quite a big middle, and mine's small. So I'm doing these French knots right on the very edge of the petals. I'm using this variegated flower thread, which is quite fine, but it's just going to be perfect. And I want higher French knots for the edge than in the middle. So I'm doing a 3 wrap French knot. Remember always to take your French knot down to the fabric before you pull through, and then you'll get a perfectly formed one. And I wouldn't probably have gone quite so near the petals, but I'm trying to make this middle as big as I possibly can. And so I'll fill all this in. My daisy's finished, and I think it's really pretty. All I've done to do the middle is I got a piece of thread out of my tangle. It was a pale green. I used 2 strands of the stranded cotton, and I've just done a single wrap French knot right into the middle. And it just adds that extra bit of realism, because that's what daisies are really like. So that's ready to go into the book. And it's ended up being a sunny day, so I'm actually going to relocate outside to finish off the page of my book. I've come outside to see if I can finish my book out here, my book page. So I've got my next page here waiting, and I've done my daisy this morning. My page was going to be totally like a proper botanical daisy. And as I sat down to stitch, my idea totally changed. And all I could think about was how we used to make daisy chains when we were little. And so this is going to be a daisy chain page. So I'm going to take this bit out of the middle of the book for the moment, so I can just work on this piece. And I've just roughly cut out this. This will have to be stitched on, so I'm just going to roughly cut it ready. I'm not going to apply it yet. I'll just roughly cut it out, and it's going to go right in the middle. But around it I'd like a daisy chain. So I'm going to get a pencil and just plan out where I want the daisies to be, and I've got my Inktense, which I'm going to use to paint the daisy chain. I'm actually ready to start and paint. So this is a properly mixed media page, because I'm going to paint a daisy chain, and then my stump-work daisy will go into the middle. So I've just done some circles to give myself an idea where I want the daisies. I did that one too low. Hopefully it'll be covered up by the petals. And I am just going to very carefully just give myself an idea of the size, just very lightly, like that, so that I've got an idea of where I'm going to paint. And then there will be the daisy chain coming through there like that, somehow. So I shall just get straight on. Got my Inktense, and I'll just make up that lovely creamy sort of a mixture. And if you saw my tutorial before on Inktense, you'll realise that the white goes on almost transparent and then dries opaque, and I might need a couple of coats to actually paint the darkness that I would like, or the brightness that I would like. So I'm just going to roughly fill these in. Sort of style that I'm going to do will just not bother whether things are within lines or out of lines. You can see already, because of the sunshine, how that's drying really nicely. But it goes on quite almost grey on there. You can see how bright and sunshiny it is this afternoon. It's actually gorgeous. So nice being able to sit outside and do some crafting. Maybe my hand's making too much shadow. Just going to put the middles in as well, because I think the yellow will need a white base to show up. Well, I've got my first layer on. I'll just wait a couple of minutes to let that properly dry, and I'll put a second layer on. The white petals have dried, and so I'm just doing the middles by dotting on some orange and then yellow, and letting them mingle together. I'm trying to make a bigger middle that I didn't do with my needlework daisy. And the colours just go together so pretty. A tiny bit of green in the middle. And now the stems. The painting's finished and I just need to bring this little image to life so that it's ready to put the daisy in the middle and do my writing. And I will start by just, I have to turn it around a bit. I'm afraid my shadow is going to be on as I do it because it's so bright here. But I am actually just going to draw the petals in, like that. Do the middle first. Just do a bit of a waggly line. Well, so far so good. The drawn edging with my, this is a Staedtler pigment liner. It's a 0.5 millimeters nib. It makes such a difference. So next one. I'm not particularly trying to keep a steady line. It just needs to look as natural as I can, and petals are not the same shape. I've finished drawing round all of my daisies, and so I'm going to put this one on the middle, and I don't need to cut it down any more than that really. Might just trim a couple of this off, being careful not to cut my petals out. But actually it's all hidden by the petals of the daisy. And because this is a bonded page, I'm going to be coming up on here, so I've used this pink, which is the nearest in colour to that, and whatever I decide to do on that page, it means that I'll have to cover up whatever I'm doing here. So I'll just be careful and use the minimal amount of stitches. So I'm going to come up right in the middle. I'm going to get my daisy, and I'm going to just go through the back without coming up. That noise is next door's dog playing with its bowl. So I do apologise for those noises. I'm going to go straight back down. Now actually there's not going to be much to see from this side. It's just going to be a couple of straight stitches. I'm putting the last stitch in here. I'm just catching that yellow bit of fabric and going straight back down, and actually on the back of here there literally is just a few stitches that I'll easily be able to cover up with whatever I do on this page. Snip it off. Almost finished. The only thing left, put my writing on. And there was only one thing I could write on a daisy page, and I have to turn it round so I can do it. And you know I just go for it. Here it goes. there we go. Daisy page finished. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer do. I hope you liked it. It's quite a simple page, but it's just exactly how I envisaged it once I started. Well, that was slightly more stressful than I imagined for trying to film outside. Between the dog pushing the bowl, Boo coming and meowing, a biplane going overhead. It was just not quite as calm as I was imagining, but I got there in the end, and I'm really pleased with the way that Daisy page has come out. It's a lot simpler than some of the others, but no less pretty. And I'm really pleased with that lovely detached picot daisy in the middle, and I do hope you have a try at that technique because it isn't very hard. Just take it slowly, don't pull things too tight, but you'll find that as you stitch it, you'll realise just how much to pull those threads and how much to leave them slack, and it doesn't take very long to get into a practice with it. That's all from me for today, and I do have some little films lined up, but I just don't want to overwhelm you with putting so many out, so I shall be interspersing them with some other things over the coming weeks. But I have been getting on with quite a few more projects. Anyway, until the next bed page, bye from Marian's World, and I will see you later. Enjoy your stitching, everyone.